That old two-story house in the Boston suburbs kept its elegant exterior, but inside time had left its marks everywhere. The creaky floorboards in the hall, the faint stains around the fireplace, and the worn grooves on the stair railings. Mary Wilson treasured every detail. "Emma, breakfast." Mary called from the kitchen as she poured orange juice. Tall with an artistic air, she wore her long brown hair in a loose ponytail, her warm eyes sparkling with intelligence. "Mommy, the clouds are being silly," 6-year-old Emma yelled by the window. The imaginative girl could turn anything into an adventure. "They sure are. But we've got no time today. Your dad is busy too." Richard came downstairs with his coffee cup. He was a guy who always took care with his looks. Tall and handsome. He flashed a charming smile especially to people from work. "I've got a big business meeting this weekend. If it goes well, it'll be huge," Richard said while patting Emma's head. "My little princess, when Daddy gets back from his trip, I'll bring you an awesome present. Promise." Emma glanced up at her father. "Sure thing," Richard winked at his daughter. Mary quietly set the table, feeling a little uneasy about her husband's words. Lately Richard seemed to be hiding something. There were small changes in his attitude, especially in the 3 months since her mom passed away. "How's everything going?" "There's still so much to do," Mary said. "But it's an exhibit showcasing 20th century female artists. It means a lot to me." Mary was known as a talented museum curator. Her passion for art never faded since childhood, though work sometimes came before family. This often frustrated Richard. "Oh, Mom called," Richard mentioned offhand. "She's visiting this weekend." Mary sighed quietly. Her mother-in-law, Helen Wilson, was the picture of upper-class manners, polish on the outside, but never subtle about meddling in their lives. To Helen, Richard was the perfect son, and Mary just wasn't good enough for him. I saw Mary faking calmness. "Emma will be happy about that, I bet." Really, Emma had complicated feelings about her grandma too. Helen's affection was conditional, only when Emma acted like a lady. After breakfast, when Richard left for work, the house went quiet. Mary sorted through her mother's things, thinking about the inheritance. It was big, though she hadn't made plans yet. "Mommy, look at this." Emma came into her mother's office. In her little hands was an old picture. "Oh, this is Grandma and me from way back." Mary gently held the photo. "You miss Grandma?" Emma nodded quietly. "Grandma told me everything." "What do you mean?" "It's a secret," Emma said with a grin. Mary thought it was just a kid's story. That evening, Mary got a call from Richard. "I'm heading out early tomorrow. Gotta get ready for the big meeting." "I see," Mary replied. A strange worry crossed her mind. During dinner, Emma was quieter than usual. Looking out the window, her expression showed concern that was unusual for a child. "What's wrong, Emma?" Mary touched her daughter's forehead. "I saw Daddy and Grandma having a secret phone call," Emma said quietly. "They thought I couldn't see them." Mary was surprised by her daughter's words but quickly remembered how imaginative kids can be. "Daddy makes lots of work calls." "All right, it's bedtime." After putting Emma to bed, Mary headed to her office to finish up planning docs for the Art Foundation. But she couldn't concentrate. Staring into the darkness, she was hit by this strange unease. The next day, Richard left earlier than usual. While organizing museum materials, Mary noticed Emma gazing out the window. Her small back was tense, and she stood frozen by the windowsill, nothing like her usual lively 6-year-old self. "Emma, what are you looking at?" Mary stepped closer to her daughter. Emma turned slowly and just stared at her mom's face. There was deep worry in her eyes that wasn't like a child's. "I'm waiting for something to happen." "What's coming?" Mary asked with a smile. "I don't know." "But Mom." Emma hesitated. "Do you remember Grandpa's old basement?" Mary went still. The basement, supposedly used by Emma's great-grandfather, had already been sealed when she bought the house. She didn't remember ever telling her daughter it existed. "Emma, where'd you hear about that?" "I saw it in a dream. There's a secret room downstairs, a place to hide when bad people come." Mary was amazed by her daughter's wild imagination but also felt uneasy. The house inspection report had actually mentioned an old servant's basement, but it was supposedly totally sealed off and inaccessible. "Yeah, old big houses had spots like that. But they're not used anymore," Mary said gently. "Really?" Emma's voice got quiet. While making dinner in the kitchen, the phone rang. Seeing the name pop up on the screen, Mary hesitated for a second. It was from her mother-in-law, Helen. "Hey, Helen," Mary put on a bright voice. "Mary, has Richard left yet?" There was an odd tension in Helen's voice. "Yeah, he took off early this morning. He should be there by now." "I see." After a brief silence, Helen continued. "Let me know if you hear from him. I got something important to talk about." Something wrong?" "Nah, nothing. Just checking." Helen's voice suddenly went cold. "How's Emma doing?" "She's fine. A bit quiet, but busy." Kids often understand more than grown-ups realize. There was something important in Helen's words. "I'll call you later." Right after hanging up, Mary heard a car engine near the house. Looking out the window, she saw a stranger walking around the house. The man in a black coat seemed to be looking for something. Mary hurried to the living room. "Let's not go out today. Let's stay inside and draw pictures." When night came and Mary tried to put Emma to bed, she wouldn't go. "I want to sleep in your room, not here." "What's up? Did you have a bad dream?" Emma shook her head. "Daddy and Grandma are up to something bad. I heard them." Mary was freaked out by her daughter's words. "Emma, that's not right. It's just your..." "That's right." Emma's voice got louder. "I found house plans in Dad's study. They showed a secret passage." Dad was studying the plans while saying "perfect" on the phone. Mary tried to calm her daughter, but Emma's look worried her. "Fine. Tonight we'll sleep in my room. But tomorrow we need to really talk about this." After tucking Emma in, Mary called Richard. But the call kept ringing with no answer. Her anxiety growing, she texted Richard but got no reply. Mary picked up her mom's photo and thought. Had her mom been concerned about Richard? Recently in her mom's things she'd found a diary with a strange line. "Worried about our..." Late that night Mary's phone buzzed. A text from Richard, "Coming back early tomorrow. Need to talk about something important." Mary lay awake, remembering Emma's words. Her daughter had a vivid imagination, but lately something felt different. Like she really knew something. Mary got up from bed and tiptoed around the house. Richard's study door was usually locked, but tonight it stood slightly ajar. Inside, neatly stacked papers covered the desk, and everything looked normal at first glance. But when she tried the drawers, the bottom one, usually locked, clicked open. Inside lay an envelope labeled life insurance documents. With shaking hands, Mary tore it open. A high-value life insurance policy, freshly issued in her name. The beneficiary, Richard. Dated 1 week after her mother's death. "This can't be," Mary breathed. She felt a chill on the back of her neck. Emma's warning suddenly seemed very real. As she was about to leave the study, she heard a car engine outside. Mary carefully peered through a gap in the blinds. A black SUV had stopped in front of the house, and an unfamiliar man got out. He was talking on his mobile phone, seemingly waiting for some signal. Mary hurried back to her room and lay down next to the sleeping Emma. Her heart was pounding rapidly. Mary woke from intermittent sleep. The morning light coming through the window was still weak, and the clock showed 5:30. She gazed at Emma's peaceful sleeping face beside her and felt somewhat relieved. However, that peace didn't last long. A faint sound caught her attention. The sound of a car door closing in front of the house. In the early morning silence, the sound echoed strangely loud. Was Richard back? What was that important talk he'd mentioned? The life insurance document she'd found last night flashed through her mind. Just as Mary was about to get up, Emma's small hand firmly gripped her arm. When Mary turned, Emma was already awake, staring at her mother with a terrified expression. "Mummy." Emma's voice was shaking. "We gotta get out right now." There was panic in that tiny voice. Mary, confused, looked at her daughter's face. "What? Why?" Emma was clearly shaking with fear. Her little body was stiff with tension, and her eyes were watery. "There's no time, we gotta leave the house right now." Mary was confused. It was clear her daughter was really scared. But what were they running from? Richard? Or that creepy guy she saw last night? Either way, Emma's fear was real. Mary just felt she should trust her kid. "All right," Mary decided. "Get dressed quick, and only take what's necessary." She grabbed a small bag from the closet and threw in cash, passports, a phone, and her mom's keepsake locket. Emma hurriedly changed into her clothes and hugged her favorite stuffed animal. "Mommy, hurry," Emma urged, anxiously looking out the window. Footsteps were heard at the front door. The sound of a key turning. And then multiple footsteps. Mary's heart raced. Emma, it seems Daddy is back, Mary said, trying to appear calm. Do we really need to leave? Shouldn't we talk to Daddy about this? Emma shook her head hard. Oh. Dad and Grandma are trying to kill Mom. They want Grandma's money. Mary gasped at her kid's words. Emma, why would you say something like, heard it? Dad was talking to Grandma on the phone. Emma looked dead serious. Dad said, if Mary's gone, everything's mine. Then we just gotta make it look like an accident. The life insurance papers she saw last night flashed through Mary's mind. A massive payout. Richard as the beneficiary. The contract signed right after her mom's death. And worst of all, Emma's terrified face. None of this could be a coincidence. I see, Mary whispered, voice trembling. Let's go down quietly. We'll slip out the back. They began moving silently down the stairs. You could hear Richard's voice from the living room. He was talking to somebody. Mary froze halfway up the stairs and listened. Everything set. Richard's voice sounded oddly cold. I'm relying on you to handle the security system. Timing's everything. Another guy's voice answered. Got it. I'll turn it on the second I get the signal. Mary froze in terror. She yanked Emma's hand and bolted for the back door through the kitchen. Clutching their things, she twisted the doorknob. It didn't move. It wouldn't budge. Mary muttered frantically. Mommy, Emma's voice trembled. It's locked from outside. Just then, gasoline fumes curled through the house. The chemical reek poured in through the windows. At the same time, the house's security system suddenly kicked in. There was no alarm, but metal shutters on the windows and doors started sliding down all at once. It was happening. They were trapped. Mary screamed in terror. She desperately searched for another exit. But every window and door was completely blocked by metal shutters. Mary was about to panic, but Emma's steady voice pulled her back. Mommy, this way. Emma kept calm. There's a hidden door behind the pantry. Following Emma's lead, Mary headed to the kitchen pantry. Behind the grocery shelves was a small door, not noticeable at first glance. Emma unhesitatingly moved the shelf and pulled a hidden handle. A small door opened, revealing a dark passage. Emma, this is... Mary was astonished. Neither Daddy nor Grandma know about this. I found it, Emma said proudly. Grandma told me. In my dream. Mary hesitated for a moment. The fear this might be a trap flashed through her mind. But inside the house, she caught the crackle of flames. The smoke smell grew thicker. No other options remained. Emma, go ahead. I'm right behind you. Mary nudged her daughter into the corridor. The cramped passage resembled an ancient servant's tunnel. Decades of dust and cobwebs draped from above. They had to hunch just to shuffle forward. Mommy, you okay? Emma turned and asked. She didn't seem scared. Rather, she looked completely sure of herself, like something was leading her. I'm fine, Mary forced a smile, but her heart pounded with terror. Questions kept flooding her mind. Was Richard really trying to kill her? All for the inheritance. How did Emma know about this passage? After walking a while, the passage dipped downward, disappearing underground. Hey, do you know where this leads? Mary asked. Yeah. Comes out under the shed in the garden. Grandma told me. The smoke smell grew stronger, and behind them came a loud blast like an explosion. The fires seemed to be spreading quickly. They hurried through the narrow passage, nearly crawling. Finally, a faint light appeared at the end. It was a small door set in the basement wall. When Emma pushed the door, it creaked open with rusty hinges. Past it lay the underground space of a shed just a little ways from the house. Hurry! Mary scooped up Emma and bolted up the shed stairs. When they flung open the shed door, crisp morning air hit their faces. Turning back, the house was already eaten up by flames. Black smoke billowed into the sky as sirens wailed closer. Mommy, let's run to Barbara's, Emma blurted. Barbara was Mary's closest friend, just 2 houses over. Mary clutched Emma tight. Emma, you saved us. Emma looked up at her mom's face. There was a grown-up calmness in her eyes. Grandma's watching over us. She knew about Dad's plan. Mary shivered at her daughter's words. There was a sureness about them that felt beyond a kid's imagination. The two rushed to Barbara's house. Barbara was just brewing her morning coffee. When she opened the door, there stood Mary and Emma, covered in soot. Their faces were marked with an unspeakable fear. Mary, what happened? Barbara quickly let them in. "Barbara, call the police." Mary's voice trembled. "Richard burned the house down, tried to kill us." Though hard to believe, Barbara immediately reached for the phone. Outside, black smoke was rising and sirens grew louder. When police and firefighters arrived, the Wilson house was already burning. As crews fought the fire, officers questioned Mary and Emma. Shaken but firm, Mary insisted this was no accident. It was attempted murder. "That's a serious claim," an older detective said. "Got any proof?" With shaky hands, Mary pulled out her phone. "Last night, I snapped pics of life insurance papers from my husband's desk. Lately he took out a huge policy in my name." The detective studied the photo and frowned. "That's not enough though. Plus, my daughter Emma overheard my husband talking." Mary squeezed Emma's shoulder. Emma spoke softly. "Dad was talking to Grandma on the phone. He said if Mary's gone, everything's mine. Then he said the trick is to make it look like an accident." The detective looked at Emma kindly. "When and where did you hear this?" 3 days ago. Outside Dad's study." Emma answered the details accurately. "Dad was on the phone and didn't notice me. Then he was looking at the old house plans. He said the security system update is complete." By that afternoon, the situation at the scene had changed completely. The fire investigator announced the initial findings. "This is clearly arson." Gasoline traces were found around the house. The security system was also tampered with to let someone lock windows and doors remotely from outside. Detectives hurried to track down Richard Wilson. His business trip story quickly fell apart. Co-workers said they'd never heard about any trip. Richard was caught at an interstate gas station that night. Fake IDs and a wad of cash turned up in his trunk. "I'm innocent," Richard shouted during questioning. "This was all my mom's idea. Who pushed me?" Helen Wilson was arrested at her home too. At first she stayed calm, but when she heard Richard was blaming her, she completely lost it. "That ungrateful jerk. I gave up everything for him." As the investigation continued, the whole terrible plan came to light. Richard was actually drowning in debt. His position at the investment company was just a front. He'd been broke for years. On top of that, he had a mistress and planned to use Mary's mom's inheritance to start over. "Looks like he'd been leading a double life for years," the detective told Mary. "After your mom passed, he set his sights on her estate. He lost patience when you didn't decide what to do with the assets." "I wonder if Mom suspected anything," Mary murmured. Turns out Mary's mom's diary had proof she'd figured out Richard's true nature. One entry read, "Richard pitched me some investment, but I refused when I learned his company was sinking." She'd been trying to warn Mary but died suddenly from illness. The trial started 3 months later. The prosecution laid out piles of evidence. Richard's phone revealed dozens of plotted conversations with Helen, detailing their plan to stage Mary and Emma's deaths as an accident. The defendant, Richard Wilson, carefully planned to kill his wife and daughter to get the inheritance, the prosecutor told the jury. He messed with the house's security system and carried out his cold-blooded plan of trapping his wife and daughter before setting the house on fire. The defense tried bringing up Richard's mental state, but he suddenly switched tactics and attempted to blame everything on Helen. "Mom was controlling me. I couldn't break free from her." But this move totally failed. Helen got furious and testified shockingly openly about how she'd spoiled and controlled her son for years, plus her own part in this scheme. "I was ready to do whatever it took for my son's happiness. Mary didn't deserve him. I figured if she was out of the picture, Richard could reach the success he was destined for." But the most important witness at the trial was Emma. With composure far beyond her years, she testified about overhearing her father and grandmother's conversation, finding the house plans, and being told about the secret passage in a dream by Grandma. "Who is this Grandma you're referring to?" the prosecutor asked. "Mommy's mommy," Emma answered simply. "She told me Daddy was planning something bad." A quiet emotion spread among the jurors. The pure belief and courage of a 6-year-old girl had saved 2 lives. Ultimately, both Richard and Helen were found guilty. Richard was sentenced to 15 years for attempted arson and attempted murder, while Helen received an 8-year sentence for conspiracy. Outside the courthouse, Mary held Emma tightly. "You saved our lives, Emma." Emma looked up at her mother. "Mommy, it's just the 2 of us now, isn't it?" "No, we have each other," Mary smiled. "And it seems Grandma is watching over us too." They walked away hand in hand. 6 months after the trial, on an autumn afternoon, Mary was looking out the window of her new home at the garden where fallen leaves were dancing. This house, purchased in a small town in the Boston suburbs, was much smaller than their former luxurious mansion, but it was filled with warmth. "Mommy, look." Emma came home from school and showed her a drawing. "The teacher said my picture's gonna be in the art show." Mary grabbed her daughter's drawing. It showed 3 women, Mary, Emma, and Mary's mom. "Nice one, Emma. Grandma would love it too." Emma smiled. "Mommy, I'm glad I told you to run that day." "Me too," Mary hugged her. Since then, Emma had been really strong with her counselor's help, Michael Foster. She made friends at her new school and was getting better at art. Mary was back at her job at the Oliver Museum while healing emotionally. She was also planning to launch a foundation for young female artists, using part of her mother's inheritance. "Have you chosen a name for the foundation?" Emma asked. "I'm leaning toward Reverse Dream. It symbolizes starting fresh," Mary replied with a smile. Meanwhile, Richard's prison days were grim. He kept filing for reduced sentences, still claiming, "This is all my wife's delusions and my daughter's fantasies." But the prosecution's evidence was undeniable. His former colleagues also testified about his years of deception. The weirdest part was how Richard and his mom Helen totally fell apart. Richard pointing fingers at his mom in court wrecked their relationship for good. Helen was stuck alone in jail and got called the saddest inmate. She just kept telling other prisoners, "I did it for my son." One day, Mary was going through her mom's stuff one last time. In some old notebooks, she spotted an envelope. There was a handwritten note from her mom saying, "Richard asked me to invest, but I said no. I figured out his business was going under." It was dated 2 weeks before her mom died. Mary handed the letter over to the cops. This led to a deeper look into Richard, and suspicions started to surface about her mother's death too. The cause of death was thought to be natural. Mary tried to shake off that thought. On Christmas Eve, Mary and Emma were hanging out by the fireplace. Emma's therapist, Michael, had also been invited, and the 3 shared a cozy evening together. Over the past 6 months, Michael had slowly become part of Mary and Emma's lives. First as a professional, then as a friend, and now like family. "Mommy," Emma suddenly asked, "what makes a real family?" Mary thought for a second and answered softly, "It's not about blood, but about caring for and looking out for each other." Emma nodded like she got it and said, "That's why we became a real family." After a pause she asked, "But weren't Grandma and Daddy family?" "They loved each other, just not in a healthy way," Mary said gently. "Real love means wanting what's best for them. It's not about what you can take." Emma peeked at Michael and grinned. "What about Michael? Could he be family too?" The grown-ups shared a look, and Mary flushed. Michael gave a warm smile and said, "We'll figure that out together someday." Snow was falling softly outside the window. Excitement for the new year and a fresh start filled the cozy house. Mary held Emma close. "Your courage made our new life possible." With these words, they moved toward a bright future.